thanks for joining us.
Hi Luke, good to see you.
So for those of you who don't know who I am, firstly, I'm Luke Thompson, Director Introlegal, a boutique legal recruitment agency in Cavendish Square. And I decided to start a series of Q&As entitled Your Next Stop Partnership. So I'd like to welcome Robert Jappie of INCE, who's kindly agreed to come on board. Thanks again, Rob.
No, pleasure to be here.
So Rob, would you just introduce yourself more formally, let us know kind of who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yes, my name is Robert Jappie. I'm a partner at INCE. I joined there recently and I specialise in cannabis law and regulation. So I advise CBD and medicinal cannabis companies on the regulatory environment here in the UK and Europe. And business has been very good so far.
I remember when we first met, I was so intrigued about what you do. I thought this is really cool. You're a cannabis lawyer. I mean, this is amazing. So tell us.
It's people think it's quite niche, and it is still a very new industry. So there aren't that many lawyers around who are specialising in this area. But yes, I do remember your surprise when I told you what I was doing.
But I shouldn't think I'm the only person that's surprised, and it must make for a good conversation at dinner parties. What do you do? I'm a cannabis lawyer.
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting topic, and people are very interested in it. But you have to remember the flip side is there's still a stigma attached to it. So some people can receive it quite negatively. Even my mother is like, I didn't send you to law school all those years to help businesses sell cannabis. Yeah. I'm around to the idea now, so that's good.
So interestingly, obviously, I don't want to dwell on COVID-19 because the whole point of this series of Q&As was to have something, do something a bit more uplifting. But out of interest, how are you finding COVID-19 is affecting business for you?
It's not had too much of an impact so far, and I think that's for two reasons. So people who use CBD, it's part of their daily routine, So once you become loyal to a brand and you find a product that you like, you want to use it every day, and a lot of the sales are made online. So in terms of online sales, with people being at home, I don't think there has been a substantial impact upon sales. Obviously, a lot of people will be shorter of money and maybe they may consider their CBD to be a luxury that they can't afford. But for the moment, a lot of my clients, it's business as usual. They're doing everything they can to hold on to their loyal clients and still attract more. More interestingly is that a lot of these companies, they are involved in manufacturing and distribution. So a lot of them have actually pivoted some of their operations towards COVID-related healthcare products. So they are now manufacturing hand sanitizers, they're manufacturing PPE, they're trying to assist with the demand for ventilators, even. So we've got quite a lot of activity going on at the moment, which is great. So as well as having to get up to speed with cannabis regulations in a short period of time, I'm now swatting up on healthcare regulations and MHRA requirements to be able to produce these kind of products. So very busy at the moment still.
I mean, it's incredible how many companies have pivoted at the current time. I mean, it's amazing, but it's interesting. But it's going to add an additional string to your bow, obviously having the healthcare element to the manufacturing side of what you do. So that's interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. Market forces, supply and demand. And you know what, I think a lot of these companies, it's not just an opportunity that they've seen to make money, they're actually doing it in a very socially responsible way. So they're donating a lot of these products to the NHS, to care homes, that side of thing. They're very eager not to be seen to be profiteering, So they're trying to do it in a socially responsible way, donate some of what they're making to good causes, and try and sell these products at a reasonable price. But yeah, this seems like a very lucrative area that is the demand is probably going to be high for some time. So absolutely, this is probably an area I will continue to focus on.
Fantastic. Rob, look, I've got a series of questions here, which I'm looking forward to delving into. So it's quite nice being on this side, actually. So Rob, firstly, tell us how you started your journey into law. How did you become a lawyer, and why law?
I chose to study law at university because I didn't really know what else to do, and I felt like it would give me a lot of options.
Where was that? Where did you study law, Rob?
I was at the University of Wales in Swansea, so I saw a lovely picture on the prospectus of the campus on the beach, and I thought that's the place for me. What they don't tell you is that you get about 2 weeks of sunshine the whole year in Swansea. So, but I was a bit of an amateur surfer as well, and they had some surf up on the Gower Peninsula and around that way. So yeah, it was an easy decision in the end. Finding my way to where I am now, that was an interesting journey. So I bounced around a few firms as a paralegal, doing sort of personal injury, contract law, various different things that didn't really fit with me. And it was only when I joined a small criminal law practice in Tottenham that I suddenly thought, okay, I've found what I'm good at. I found what I'm passionate about, and this is what I want to do.
And what would you say your best memory of being a trainee?
So I trained at a notorious high street legal aid criminal defence firm in Tottenham. And anyone in the criminal world will know who they are. They didn't have the best reputation, but they had phenomenal work. I mean, the cases that I was dealing with immediately upon being a trainee there was phenomenal. And I think for any criminal defence lawyer, it sounds a bit strange, but general crime, a murder case is the pinnacle. So to be a trainee there and to be immediately assisting on cases as serious as that was just mind-blowing. It was amazing.
I think we spoke before. I started out in criminal law, but made a switch to family law. But I mean, were you ever on the police station road? Because I know I was.
Yeah, that's probably the worst bit about being a trainee, is that I was on call probably 13 days a month. So as well as working full time in the office, I spent, hours and hours and hours in the police station. So you could go into the office at 9, leave there at 6 p.m, go straight to the police station, leave there at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, grab a few hours sleep, and then back into the office at 9 o'clock. And, you could have weeks and weekends like that. So yeah, that was tough. That was pretty hard. But when you actually enjoy the work and you're passionate about something, it makes it that much easier.
I must admit, my stomach often goes if I hear a police officer go past and I hear the sound of their kind of walkie-talkie. I remember that sound at the middle of the night. You sit in the police station cell with a client and you hear that noise drinking out of a plastic brown cup. Just thinking, I want to be in bed.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and you want to get out of there as quickly as possible, but you also have to do right by your client, So,
yeah,
it was tough, and it is a tough job, but it's something you have to be passionate about to be able to enjoy and move forward with it.
Worst memory of being a trainee? You might not have one.
No, there was a lot. I think the thing is, in criminal law, you most of the clients that you have, you like and you can build a bond with, and you want to help them, and you feel good about helping them. Maybe they've got themselves in a difficult situation. Every now and again, you get someone that you can't build that bond with, and I'd say there's probably a couple of times when I was actually frightened for my own safety. That was probably the worst memory, but all criminal lawyers will have experienced that at some time. That's the nature of the job.
So, Rob, tell us how is it that you've become essentially the leader in your field of expertise? How does that happen?
I think there's an element of good fortune to it. My timing was very good, so I've had a long-standing interest in drug policy and in particular cannabis from my time at Release. I used to work at a charity in Shoreditch on their legal team, and I was doing a lot of policy work and lobbying work there. So this idea of a cannabis law department just wouldn't leave me alone. So I was in a fortunate position that I was at a firm that encouraged innovation. And the timing was very good. We launched the department in May 2018. There was a very small CBD industry here in the UK, but it was growing rapidly. And then 6 months later, the UK government suddenly legalised medicinal cannabis, much to everyone's surprise. So things sort of snowballed from there. In addition to the good fortune, there's been a lot of hard work. I really put my heart and soul into getting out there, meeting all the right people in the industry, trying to advise clients in a positive and commercially minded way. And I've worked very hard to develop long-lasting relationships and even friendships within the sector. And I think that's stood me in really good stead.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think the friendship element is key. I mean, if you can...
Yeah, it is really important. I think people underestimate what it can be to have, you know, not just a business or a commercial relationship with a client, but actually to be friends with them and develop that relationship. And it may not be a situation where you're getting work from them, you know, but maybe you're doing things for them because they are a friend. And when someone says to them, do you know a good lawyer? Then there you go, they send them your way. So these types of relationships are really, really important.
So Rob, in terms of cannabis law, for those who don't know, I mean, what does that encompass?
So I deal with regulation. So I help these businesses navigate the regulatory environment, and that means what can they do, what can't they do. Mm-hmm. So there's you know, people think cannabis law is very niche, but in fact it's very wide. It covers so many different areas. So you've got agriculture, you've got licensing, you've got manufacturing, you've got food standards, you've got pharmaceuticals. So you know, I've had to become very familiar with a lot of different regulations in a short space of time. But that's it. You have CBD companies which operate in the health and wellness sector, mm-hmm. And then you have medicinal cannabis companies which operate in the pharmaceutical environment. So yeah, all of these businesses that have, you know, some of them have been established for a few years now. As the regulations change, they need advice on how to stay compliant and how to move forward in a developing legal environment.
I remember when we spoke before, I was amazed at how valuable the industry is now in terms of the numbers involved in cannabis law. I mean, could you remind those listening, I mean, how much money essentially is injected into this industry each year, and how valuable it is essentially from a legal perspective?
Yeah, so what you have to remember is that this is still a very small industry. It's a nascent industry and it's growing all the time. What you are looking at is effectively a product that is sold on the illegitimate market that is slowly being turned into a legal industry. So as more and more countries decide to legalize more of the cannabis industry, the more legal work flows from that, because you have businesses that want to operate in this new industry. The potential rewards are massive. And it will be the compliant companies that will end up being the sustainable companies. So from a legal perspective, it's great. More regulations means a stable market, and it brings consumer confidence, and that means the lawyers will be busy as these regulations develop.
How big can you see this getting, this particular sector of the industry, cannabis law?
I think I genuinely believe I will still be doing this work in 10, 15 years, you know, and I think the cannabis sector could become as well established as oil and gas, aviation, shipping, you know, all of these legacy practices. I don't see any reason why cannabis can't become as big as that. You've got legalization rolling out across Europe quite slowly. Europe is 600, 700 million people. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge market to sell these products to. You've then got to think about, after Europe, where's next? And you look at Asia, and Asia is billions of people, you know, that don't have access to these products yet. So the long-term potential for the market is massive.
So moving now towards the business side, the commercial side of what you do. I mean, how would you define commercial awareness, Rob? And when did you recognise this as being an important factor to the success of your career?
Yes, so the difficulty with cannabis law and regulation is that the current laws and you know, the regulatory environment is very underdeveloped. There's a lot of grey areas. There's a lot of disputes over what's right and what's wrong. So for a lawyer, it's kind of an unnatural situation to be in. Lawyers are naturally very cautious, and if you see a grey area, you tend to shy away from it. That doesn't really work for cannabis. You have to be brave, and you have to have courage, you know, to be able to put your client in the best position to take advantage of that grey area. So what I've tried to do is, rather than advise my clients, yes, you can do this, no, you can't do that, I try to couch my advice in terms of risk. So if you do this, it's high risk. And if you take these steps that I'm advising you to take, you can mitigate that risk to a commercially acceptable level. And by giving advice in that sense, my clients have been very happy. They, you know, anyone operating in the cannabis sector does have some appetite for risk. What they need is assistance in mitigating that risk to a commercially acceptable level. What they don't want is a lawyer to say, no, 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 you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. They effectively want you to help them find a solution. They want you to help them be compliant, but also help them move their business forward. And so that's what I deem to be a commercial awareness of what your client is actually trying to achieve.
That's great. And in terms of business development, what does that mean to you?
So I was a late starter when it came to business development. So up until maybe 3-4 years ago, it wasn't something that really registered with me at all. I was a case handler, I was a fee earner, I was happy to receive my cases and work hard on them and do a good job. It was only as my career started to progress a bit, I suddenly realised that business development was something I'd neglected for a very long time. It's a really, really important part of being a lawyer. You've got to get out there, you've got to make connections, you've got to make relationships, and you also have to build a profile and a presence for yourself. And it's actually something I wish I'd started doing at a much younger age. So as my career did start to move forward, I was really playing catch up in a big way in terms of getting my name out there, making those relationships. Because eventually having that network, having that profile means that you will start to be able to generate a lot of work for yourself and for your firm as well.
I mean, that's interesting, because that actually leads on to my next question. I mean, in terms of what tips do you have for aspiring lawyers, junior lawyers wanting to build on their BD efforts, and what BD essentially worked best for you?
I think there has to be a commitment to doing business development. It's not a situation where you can go to one event and sit back and suddenly expect all of the work to roll in. It doesn't work like that. You know, you've got to put the effort in over 6 months, over a year, over 18 months. It's only by regularly, meeting with these people in your network, by regularly attending these events, in the long term, you will start to see the benefit. I think it's got to be a long-term strategy. This isn't something you can dip your toe into. You've got to do it on a regular basis, and there's a tendency to reduce your BD when you're busy. If you've got lots of work on, people will think, oh, I don't need to go and do any BD because I'm busy now. The problem is when you're quiet, there's no point doing your BD when you're quiet, because it's a long-term strategy. So even when you're busy, you've got to get out there, you've got to go to events, and you've got to make sure you're making an effort to keep your face out there. It's really important.
And so we all know, essentially, having a business case, having a client following are real buzzwords amongst partners and those essentially wanting to attain partnership. I mean, how did you create such a strong client following? What did you do in order to get that?
It was, it was a lot of hard work. Like I said, you've got to attend these events. You've really got to put your effort into meeting people, making those connections, and building that long-term relationship. I've been very fortunate that I've entered this industry just at the right time. I've made some wonderful connections, and those friendships have been repaid back to me, tenfold. So yeah, it was a lot of hard work to get myself out there, get my face out there, be supportive of the industry in general, and it's really helped me build up a good following and a good client base. I mean,
you do a lot of seminars, Rob, a lot of presentations. I mean, you've done some expo presentations. I mean, which is a big deal. I mean, a lot of people would look at those and think, "Oh, I couldn't do that." I mean, did you used to imagine yourself being able to stand up at such a big venue and talk to so many people? Did you ever see yourself doing that?
Well, I wasn't ever a particularly good advocate as a criminal lawyer. It's not something that comes naturally to me, and I still get nervous now. Even if I feel very comfortable with my content and what I'm going to say, my hands get sweaty. I get nervous. My heart starts racing. So it's normal. My first presentation to a large room was a complete disaster. It was an absolute disaster. My presentation disappeared off the screen for about 2 minutes, and they couldn't find it again, and it was just a nightmare. And I thought after that, I never want to be on stage ever again. But and the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But it becomes very natural when you are comfortable with your content, with the material that you're speaking about. So I'm fortunate now to be in a position where I feel very comfortable talking about cannabis law and regulation. It's second nature to me. So when I am giving a presentation, it feels like it's something actually enjoyable and it's fun rather than a chore or an effort.
How much preparation do you have to put in beforehand? I mean, does it take a lot? Do you practice? I mean, what do you do in order to feel confident when you're up on the stage?
I think everyone has their own style. When I give a presentation, I tend to talk a lot, so I'd rather be the one giving the information than putting the information up on my slides. When I use slides, it's usually just a visual aid.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen with that visual aid, it's not just a visual aid to my audience, it's a visual aid to me, so I can see it and then I can say, right, brings me on to this point, and then I will talk about what I've shown in the slide. But everybody has their own style. I tell you what is good is, it's one thing to run through a presentation in your head, it's a completely different thing to say it out loud. So if you can speak out loud, practice it out loud, maybe even take a video of yourself. I find that's a really good tip for improving your public speaking.
So in terms of partnership, how has that changed your daily working life from when you were associate or senior associate? I mean, how has being a partner changed everything for you?
I'm fairly self-sufficient anyway, you know. I'm perfectly fine working on my own or as part of a team, but Cannabis, because, you know, it is quite niche, I generally have been working by myself. So the move to partnership has been fairly smooth, I have to say. I feel probably as a senior associate, I was effectively acting as a partner. So I'm very happy to be at INCE, and they've been very welcoming and they've been very supportive of what I do. And they've effectively given me free rein. They said, well, you're a partner now, you do what you like, and you know, you bring in work and you work on cases as you wish. Where the pressure comes in is obviously you are expected to bring that work in, and there are mouths to feed effectively within the firm. You know, you have junior staff that need work, and if you are not generating work for the firm and if you are not bringing those cases in, then you can expect someone to come and have a word with you. So yes, there is a pressure there, but so far it's been a very smooth and very enjoyable transition.
Which then goes back, doesn't it, to how important it is for junior lawyers to be thinking now, not tomorrow or the next day, about how essentially they're going to amass that client following. Because as you say, you've got a responsibility to feed those people kind of, you know, below you essentially in the career ladder chain in your respective departments.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story. I have a close group of friends, you know, that they practice privately funded criminal law, and we've effectively grown up together. You know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, we were all associates, and we'd go to the Young Fraud Lawyers Association and we'd hang out. And you know, you'd never get any work from going to the Young Fraud Lawyers Association dues, but it was good because you're building these friendships. All of these guys, they're all becoming partners of top firms now, you know, and we've stayed friends and we will help each other and we look after each other. So it is important that you do these things from a young age, because even if you're, you know, associating with other junior lawyers, eventually you will all move up and you will become partners of different firms, and those relationships will stand you in good stead.
Well, from your point of view, I mean, those people who haven't yet been presented with the opportunity of getting onto the partnership track where they are at their existing firm, I mean, when do you think, as a senior associate or associate, you should be thinking about making that jump to partnership if it hasn't already presented itself to you at your existing firm? When do you think people should start thinking, well, maybe I should start considering other options?
I think you have to know what your value is. I think it's important to be commercially aware of the work and the income that you're generating for your firm. So that's a really important part. Know what your practice is. Know how much work that you've actually generated for the firm as a senior associate, and make it clear. You know, I feel that based on the income that I've brought to the firm, based on the connections that I've brought to the firm, based on the work that I've brought into the firm, I'm ready for the move. You know, you have to speak up. So it's important to be, like I said, you know, when you're advising clients, it's good to be commercially aware, but it's also very important to be commercially aware of what your own practice is currently achieving too.
Do you have any wise words for kind of junior lawyers, aspiring lawyers wanting to enter into the legal world?
Yeah, I think, like I said, start that business development as soon as you can. Get out there, do your coffee meetings, do your lunches, go to events, you know, and build these relationships. I think it's a really good practice to look at what you've done every month and say, right, how many events did I go to this month? And you should be aiming for at least 4 or 5 a month, I would say. Yes, if you have a lot of work on, it's difficult, but it's really important that you get out there and you do your business development, because you'll need it in the future.
I mean, I remember when I was a junior associate, one of the firms I worked at had it was a marketing diary. I mean, you had to present a sheet of paper to your head of department, listing all the events you'd been to that particular month.
And I think, you know, some firms are very, very good at that. You know, there is an element of being named and shamed if you haven't been doing your business development, and you know, maybe that's not to everyone's taste, but it's effective. I think some firms have a lot of improvement to do in that area. So I hope that building a practice from scratch, like I did, I think INCE recognise that, and hopefully that will be something for other lawyers to look at and think, you know what, that's something I'd like to do for myself.
Did you ever envisage having to do as much business development as part of being a lawyer? No,
never. I would say the business development I do probably takes up about 30 or 40% of my time.
That's a lot. That's a lot of time, isn't it?
It is a lot, and yeah, I do well. Obviously, I'm dashing in and out of the office to meet this person and that person. Sometimes you are concerned your colleagues are thinking, well, where's he off to again?
Oh, there's Rob off for another lunch.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. It's nice to go out for lunch and for coffees and drinks, but it is work. You know, sometimes you don't want to do it, but you have to. It's really important, and I would say 30-40% of your time should be spent making connections, because that's how you're generating the work to keep you busy in future.
And I say, lastly, Rob, a plug obviously for your firm. What would you say the best thing about working at INCE is for those people watching this video?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just delighted to be there. It's an amazing firm, and it's it's a fairly conservative name, and it's got a great reputation, and the branding is wonderful, but the expertise there is first class. I have to say, I'm really, really impressed with the work that they're currently doing. I think they probably surprised people by taking me on, because it's a really, really progressive move. You know, for a fairly well-established and conservative firm like INCE to say, right, we want a presence in the cannabis sector, we like what you've done, we want to be involved in this industry, we think it's a long-term growth market for us, is wonderful. You know, the 2020 is supposed to be about mainstreaming cannabis, taking the legal cannabis market out of this sort of niche area and bringing it into the mainstream, into the public consciousness. And for a firm like INCE to come and say, right, we want to be involved in this, it's just brilliant. That's all part of mainstreaming cannabis, so I couldn't be happier.
That's really good to hear, Rob. Look, you're a great guy. I think you've got a fantastic career ahead of you at INCE. I think your sector is extremely interesting, and I'm truly very grateful to you for agreeing to come on to this Q&A. There's been so many newly qualified trainees, junior associates, all facing a really difficult time at the moment. Certainly those who've been furloughed or maybe made redundant, had vaccines cancelled. Your insight into your career and legal journey so far is going to be so helpful to people. So I really am grateful to you, Rob.
Yeah, well, look, it is a difficult time for everybody, and it is a challenge. I have no doubt that once we get through this difficult period and we start to move towards normal life, things will bounce back in a big way. So, I think that we'll be back to business as usual sooner rather than later. The other thing I'd like to say is thank you to you, Luke. You're the one that got me these interviews at INCE. You're the one that coached me through, what was a challenging interview process, and you're the one that's helped me get my dream job. So I'm grateful to you as well.
That's really kind of you, Rob. Cheers. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We've got a friendship now, which is how it should be. It's not just a case of a business relationship. These things develop into a friendship, so that's cool.
Cheers, Rob. Thanks ever so much.